morning. Welcome to BWI Live. I'm Thomas Brian Carr. Sean Fitz, Ryan Snyder with me. We're talking Penn State recruiting because it's Thursday, and that's what we do. Giving you a preview of the upcoming weekend, and mercifully, we've done a great job on talking about the events and the things that are important, but actual events are happening this weekend. Penn State's getting visitors on campus. Elite 11 is coming to State College, to State High, so we've got some intriguing conversations to get into. But the first thing I want to do is I just want to say good morning. Brad Moeller, Ryan Sheard, Kevin Payne, they're here before the show every week. They say good morning. They're always ready to go to get into some Penn State football talk, and I appreciate you guys being here. We love you guys. Thank you for making the show what it is. Now, to the people who make the show from a word perspective what it is, Sean Fitz, how you doing this morning?
These people clearly already subscribe to the Blue White Illustrated YouTube channel, and if you haven't done so and you're watching this, nothing's stopping you. Just go down, scroll down, click it. It's a great way to support us for free. I know it's very useful for us in terms of our numbers and everything like that. So we appreciate if you can subscribe, like the video and all that stuff. It does matter. So we will grovel if we have to, but we'll get back to that later, I guess.
Yeah, I'm not above begging. I have done it in the past. I will do it in the future. He makes a great point. Ryan, how are you doing this morning? What's going on in the Ryan Snyder household?
Not much in the household. We got a baseball game tonight, but I will not be there because there's a good little showcase in the area tonight that I'm going to hit up. Susquehanna, Black Cyrus, of course, Cumberland Valley, Tyler Merrill, of course. Harrisburg will be there, who has a bunch of guys from Messiah Mickens to Kevin Brown. So looking forward to that. You know, the region is pretty good, but with talent for 2026. So I think it's a great move by Susquehanna to kind of organize that, get everybody together, and curious to see which coaches are out there. We'll see if Penn State makes it out there or not. Sean, are there more showcases now than ever before? Like, was there a rule change where I know there's been showcases, but I feel like there's more now than ever.
I think the coaches are getting on the same page here. They understand that if a coach is in the area, he wants to see as much as possible. And we saw that this week in New England where, I mean, coaches from all over the country, I mean, Washington came in to see these guys there. So, like, if you can get them all on the same page and understand that, yes, on Fridays and Saturdays in the fall, we're going to work against each other. But if we work together, you know, all ships rise with the tide or whatever the saying is. So I think that that's what you're seeing more and more is like, hey, this is good for everybody. Like, this is not just, we're not just trying to hold off and to wall off ourselves and make ourselves better. This makes everybody in the area better. And that helps in the future to get coaches back there. I mean, you look at New England this week, I mean, just chock full of sidelines, and it was school to school. It was very well run, and it was just making it easier on the college coaches. And hey, nobody feels bad for the college coaches. They're getting paid a lot of money, but still, like, you want your kids out there. This is what you do for your kids, and they're doing it. And it's awesome.
Especially with the new rule change where you can only go to school once, right? I mean, I think that maybe, I don't know if that's part of it, but just I think I think it might be part of it. We'll see.
Well, Ryan's going to go and check that out, and then you can check out what he saw over at BlueWhiteIllustrated.com. We're going to get this out of the way right away because I want people to know, again, people here in the chat, they know about this. Use the promo code PSU1 for 2 months. You get 2 months for $1. That is exclusive to people who are here on the Blue White Illustrated YouTube channel and our podcast. We love you for supporting us, the thousands of people that watch these videos and listen to these podcasts every day. The percentages are clear that not all of you are over at BlueWhiteIllustrated.com. I see some more familiar names and usernames over there. So just check it out. 2 months for $1. That gets you into July through the most important part of the recruiting season. If you want to get more information, you want to get all the good stuff, it is from these guys at BlueWhiteIllustrated.com where they can give you the inside scoop. Also, today's show is brought to you by My Perfect Franchise. My Perfect Franchise is your path to the future if you are looking for a way to work for yourself and be your own boss. Maybe you have corporate experience and you want to leave the rat race. You want to stop being middle management, making money for other people, and start making money for yourself. Build wealth, diversify, have a side hustle. Nothing feels better than the money that comes in from your side hustles, by the way, because it's just so sweet. Well, it could be eventually your main thing, whether things are booming in the economy or there's a downturn, doesn't matter. There's always something where there's a worthwhile investment. And Andy Ludicky, he has almost a decade of experience in this, of finding people the right franchise to manage, buying into a franchise with your hard-earned money to make yourself a better life. So check him out. His services are 100% free. He's here to help if you have any questions. 404-973-9901. That's 404-973-9901, or Andy at myperfectfranchise.net. You can check out myperfectfranchise.net. There is a link in the description of the video. Before we get to the weekend and all of the visitors that are coming up and all of the events, Ryan put together a fun series of articles using his expertise and his experience of what he knows about the situation to put together a mock class, offense and defense. So Ryan, first off, tell people your parameters for how you selected, because there's a bunch of different ways you could go. Best fit, who makes the most sense, most realistic. What was your mock class offense and defense based on from your perspective of things?
Well, just kind of look at the numbers. Start there, right? 13 players committed, nine of whom are going to expected to play offense, 4 of whom will play on defense, right? So when we're looking at offense, clearly wide receiver, maybe another offensive tackle, maybe another tight end. Those feel like the priority spots. I feel like quarterback and running back are never going to say they're done, but they're in a good position, right? So a lot of it was just kind of me projecting, who I think Penn State may lead with, or at least in a good position with at wide receiver. I think we've talked about Lex Cyrus, Jeff Exner a good bit. Those are 2 guys that I'm really focused on. And I think Penn State needs to get over the line for that position. So, tight end, offensive line, obviously Matt Henderson just committed. You got Andrew Olish out there still, Brody Lennon. We'll see where things go there. And the offensive line was maybe the most difficult one to really kind of hamper down and predict, just because it feels like Michael Carroll, Zaire Addison, even Max Buchanan, the more I learned on him, I feel like there's a better relationship there than maybe what the visits kind of would present. And of course, Malachi Goodman as well. So those guys all kind of feel up in the air to me. I kind of wrote that I think Michael Carroll could be the guy. I do think Penn State has improved its standing with Michael Carroll in recent weeks, but man, that was a complete toss up really on offense. Sean, anything you want to add?
Yeah, visits are going to determine this, and that's a quite an undertaking from you to try and mock the class before the visits because there's so many twists and turns that could possibly come from that. So, and that's not a criticism; that's just like the reality of the situation. To figure out like Michael Carroll, Zaire Addison, who just picked up Ohio State and Michigan this morning, because I don't know why they didn't offer him before that.
Right.
Just there's a bunch of guys that just have all these X factors that could determine their end up recruitment. So kudos to you for putting yourself out there on that one. But I think Michael Carroll, if you look at the highlights right now on the YouTube show, good looking prospect who's really improved. He's right in that wheelhouse, Southeast PA. He's a legacy kid. There's a lot of things going for Penn State. We kind of thought that it was going away from Penn State. I think they've helped themselves. They offered his little brother Liam earlier this week, or maybe that was last week by now. I don't know. It's all running together. But that I think that helps. And they were in there to see him. Phil Troutwine and Terry Smith came through. So you've got connections there. And this is a guy he's really enjoyed his recruiting process, and absolutely should be his prerogative to do that. But I think when it comes down to it, I think Penn State's going to be in it at the end, which, a couple of months ago, we were just kind of questioning whether that would happen. Michigan maybe faded a little bit. Alabama's certainly still out there. Georgia's going to be out there. It's going to be a hard-hitting, list of competitors there. But I do like that Penn State's got some things going for him, and he really fits what Penn State has been doing successfully on the offensive line.
Mm-hmm.
How does that evolve, or what are the important things in this recruitment to what you guys understand of Michael Carroll and his priorities? Ryan, how do these things fit where the ebb and flow seems to be going Penn State's way at this point?
Mainly, I would just say staying close to home, family. I do think it's not a coincidence Penn State offered his brother. I think family's always been important. His brother's moving up through the high school ranks right now. And, if you go to Alabama, you go to Georgia, you ain't going to be able to watch your brother, which I know he's very close with. Go down the road and watch his progress. And obviously, when you're at Penn State, you only get a couple of bye weeks, right? So I'm not saying he's going to be down there all the time on Friday nights, but I do think that's something that Penn State's kind of hit on recently, and maybe is playing a part. But it's going to be a tough one. He's going to take all his visits, as Sean said. Kind of throwing the dice there on a mock class on May 10th. But we're halfway until junior visit, or excuse me, official visits start, and had to write about something last week.
And Ryan, we're listing him as a tackle now. I think that's important to say.
Huge.
Like, this is a kid that went from 6'3.5" to almost 6'6" plus in the last couple of years. So he's grown from an interior prospect that had a lot of work to do when we first saw him at camp, and to his credit, put in that work, and he's made those improvements. And now we see him as an, could be a bona fide offensive tackle. Really kind of reminds me of Caden in that way. Like, yeah, maybe his best position is an interior guy at the next level, but that's kind of irrelevant if he can play tackle like Caden was able to turn it around and play tackle.
This in the chat. First off, Brad Moeller says, Ryan, did you post your mock anywhere? BlueWhiteIllustrated.com is where any of our writing is. So if you want to check it out there, of course. And I'll also put it in the description of the video. I'll try to get into the live chat while we're doing the show.
Brad, if you go to our recruiting page, the offense was on May 9th and the defense was posted on May 13th. So all you got to do is, go to BWI Recruiting, click on all the articles, scroll down a little bit, you'll find them.
Kevin says, anything short of Quincy Porter, and it'll be a disappointment, guys. Do you want to address the receiver position? And Ryan, I guess, how did you work through realistic versus a surprise positive player to slip in the class? Somebody who is a realistic target that maybe Penn State doesn't traditionally land, but you feel just good about it, and you felt like, I want to throw this one in here for... Or was it mostly like, these are the realistic ones, this is where I feel comfortable?
Yeah, it's May 10th. We did this. So it was mainly more realistic, right? I mean, I think I definitely mentioned in wide receivers, like that's a position that you could see a surprise. Do I think it's going to be Quincy Porter? No, not really. But do I think it could be one of those Florida guys coming up, or, just some of the players who have been very quiet? I mean, Matthew Otten, we know they really high on Matthew Otten, but like he just doesn't talk a whole lot. So I kind of look at him as a surprise guy just because it's been difficult to get a firm read. I mean, Maryland, Virginia Tech. Go ahead, Sean. You want to say something?
No,
sorry, you were going to jump in there. My fault.
Opening another window.
Okay. So yeah, I think wide receiver is a position for that, but I wouldn't lean towards Quincy Porter. I feel like he's destined for Ohio State. I think that's kind of more a matter of time, maybe Michigan, but if I had to put my money down on somebody right now, it would be Ohio State for him.
Was there another offense or defense? Was there another part of this that you found interesting going through the process of narrowing down the list of the players that you added for Penn State on either side of the ball?
I think just defensive line in general, right? That one feels very difficult to predict. It feels pretty wide open. I feel good about the way Penn State has progressed with Jaden today. Just kind of guys we're watching for RPM, stuff like that. He certainly feels like someone who's moving up their board as an edge. But man, when you go to defensive tackle, there's 5-6 guys there who are going to take official visits, and man, they're all pretty difficult to sort out right now. I feel like Tommy Rupley up in New England is a player who's quickly moving up their board, and somebody we need to probably be talking about more. I don't think he's a guy we've really discussed a whole lot on the YouTube show. So I would suggest fans to go check him out, check out his film. Looks like a player who would really fit Penn State well. But for the most part, it feels like, they certainly want more edges in this class than tackles. It makes sense, right? I think they had, 3-4 tackles in the last class, maybe 2 edges. So that makes sense. But, man, it's just really hard to pinpoint how defensive line is going to go. And it wouldn't really shock me either if that drags into the season as well.
The interesting wrinkle, I guess, I find, and I don't know if this is any different, Fitz, when we're looking at the defensive side of the ball, there is this perpetual tug and pull, push and pull of corner, safety, linebacker. Which one are you going to major in? How is your defense going to be built now and in the future? So with this particular class, I guess, how do you see the big picture view? Do you see it changing at all of the priorities of 3 linebackers versus 3 safeties, or getting as many corners as possible? How do you view when you're trying to project the numbers or the allotment of scholarships? What do you prioritize, or what do you think about, if anything has changed there?
Prioritize corners, man. Like that's the game. Corners and DNs is where you kind of set yourself up for success in terms of building a defense and having a successful defense. So yeah, you start, and if you need to overload a corner, that's great. Lamont Payne was a corner. He's now a safety. You've had guys that have made that move from corners. Akee Wheatley actually started as a corner, moved over to safety. So safeties with corner skills are invaluable, and we kind of see that, especially in this new defense. So I think you start at corner. If you need to overload a corner, we'll talk about a visitor this weekend that kind of fits that mold in the in between those two, and that's why I think you take them. But yeah, number one, Terry Smith is always going to take more corners than he's allotted. Like that is just, it's just how he works, and it's worked out pretty well for him. But number two, there's no backtracking from corner. You don't go from corner to another position. You go from corner to safety. You can go from safety to corner. You can go from safety to linebacker, but there's no backtracking once you get to corner. So take those fast athletic guys. We talked Jameer Joseph. We talked Brandon Finney. And there are more guys that are coming up for an official visit. And you kind of see that as you lay out the landscape of official visitors, is that corner remains, if not the top priority, one of the top two in building a defense for Penn State.
How did you see this, Ryan? What did you lean
Similarly.
into that?
Yeah, I mean, look, they got 8 corners about to take official visits, right? I mean, that's a big number. I mean, I might be more corners taking officials than any other position, Sean. I think can't think of another one that has more at the moment.
Maybe receiver, but yeah.
Yeah, well, that's true. Yeah, receivers right around that same line. But the one thing I would say is the loss of King Mack. How does that impact them at safety? I do think safety is going to be a position that they need to maybe address in the portal. I don't think the spring portals got what they want there. It just doesn't seem like there's a whole lot there. But when you just look at the young guys who have come in, and then obviously you have Jalen, you have Kevin Winston, you have Zakee Wheatley, all who are becoming third-year guys at least. I could absolutely see Winston and Jalen leaving after the season, and then all of a sudden you're in a position where you have maybe Zakee there and a lot of young guys. So that could be a spot where I don't know if I wouldn't say that they wouldn't take 2 safeties in this class, but I do think that's a spot where when we get to next December, they might have to address it in the portal. And maybe that impacts how they look at the 2025 class. But for the most part, that's so far down the road, I don't think it would impact them too much.
And I think they're looking at a safety in the portal right now, or looking for a safety in the portal right now. There's not much out there.
Yeah.
Depth, reassurance, all that kind of stuff is what you're looking at, because King Mack, that's a pretty massive hole that he's leaving behind him.
Mm-hmm.
Were there any other interesting parts of this that you want to bring up, Ryan?
Not a whole lot. Maybe we'll see what happens at linebacker. What's that?
I said besides all of it is what
yeah, I mean, linebacker will be interesting just because they have 2 quality guys committed. I'm looking at Deshaun Burnett more as an edge. Maybe he'll start at linebacker. I think long term they want him to be an edge. So that brings in the Ty Jacksons of the world, the LeVar Arrington, the seconds of the world. Maybe they can scoop one of those 2 and add a third linebacker. I think Ty Jackson will be really kind of hard to get away from some of those Southern schools, especially as he's consistently kind of been rising up the camp circuit and in the rankings and all that. But LeVar Arrington is enticing to me, or intriguing to me, obviously because of his dad's ties to the school, and how he's still very tied into the school as well. So just be curious to see how that official visit goes, and what Penn State does at linebacker. I don't think it's a spot where they absolutely have to add a third, but seems like they're interested enough in those 2 where they would.
I want to get your opinion, and this will be kind of where we end. This is highlighting LeVar Arrington II. Can you put him into context as a recruit, guys? Because I think that's there's certainly an expectation based on the last name, but this doesn't mean that they're the same player. His dad and him. Fitz, how do you view LeVar Arrington II as a prospect, and where he kind of fits into the picture?
It's so difficult to separate that first and last name, by the way, because it's just not fair to anyone. Like, LeVar was a different breed, and I think the younger LeVar does some nice things on film, but yeah, it's an unscalable mountain right there to be compared to LeVar Senior, first, or whatever you want to call him. I do think that he could play at this level. I mean, you look at the offers that he's got. Oregon's pursuing him. I don't know that he's a top of the board guy for some of the top, like the tier 1 schools, but he's a guy that, a lot of schools really like, and UCLA's out there, and he's got options out west, which is, we see some of these legacy guys sometimes that pick up offers that, I mean, maybe it's was it Jimmy Kennedy's kid last year? Mm-hmm. They offer them and they don't pursue, and they don't do anything. I mean, I think LeVar the second is an actual target for Penn State. And there's a difference there. So I didn't do well in vocalizing it, but I think he is a guy that's, right around that line.
He's a guy that is worth. It's not just the name. It's not just the connection. This is a guy who I think just looking at him on film, he's big enough to play defense, and he seems like he moves well enough to be a legitimate prospect. Brian, just same question. What do you think about where he fits in the overall picture, and how you address that in this class?
I would say one of the most important things too is he looks like he's really kind of taking off physically. I don't know, maybe 6 months ago, what, Sean, we were here and he was like, what, 170 or so,
Yeah.
which, yeah, to play linebacker at this level was, certainly smaller than what you'd like. But now, after he came for the blue white game, I believe it was, we kind of got some updated information, legit 6'3", 200 now. I'm not sure when that 170 number was. LeVar, he's another one who really doesn't talk a whole lot, doesn't do a lot of camp. So information's been limited at times. But one other thing I will add is, like, if you go to his profile, you'll see he's been to Penn State twice. He's been to Penn State way more than twice. He's just one of those guys, because of his dad, because of his family history here, they kind of sneak on campus, do their own little personal visits here and there. So I think he's probably been here maybe 3, 4, 5 times for actual recruiting visits, and only really 2 of them that we absolutely know about, or the actual dates, I should say.
One of the things that Penn State is going to do this upcoming weekend is host prospects surrounding the Elite 11. We're going to get into the visit portion of that right now and discuss the interesting names that are on campus. Fitz and I talked about this on the Tuesday show, so if you want to check out that thing, the little early part of the show that we do to give you a preview of what's happening. Fitz, just to review that, and then we'll get into what you have to think about this. Jose Epinesa is visiting. So, Fitz, can you relay the groundwork for Jose and why he's having an official visit now?
Yeah, very quickly. His June schedule was filled, so Penn State wanted to get him on campus. He wanted to get to campus, and this was the weekend that worked. Penn State is close enough to the official visit season where you can make that work. You can bring guys off the road. You can bring Deion Barnes back in to spend time with him. You've got guys on campus that you can spend time with. So Jose Epinesa, a top 100 prospect by the On3 industry rankings, is definitely a guy that's very high on the board. We haven't really talked about much. He's out there in Illinois. Of course, his brother played at Iowa, AJ, who was a tremendous player at Iowa, now with the Buffalo Bills. So like the genes are good. The genes are very good. Very good player. I think Miami is a really big threat here, which is interesting because Iowa's, I think, the other school that's involved. So kind of polar opposites there, but he's been down to Miami a couple times, really likes it. So this is a guy that's going to, that has a national recruitment, but also is one of those guys that's, maybe not just focused on the Alabamas and the Georgias and the Ohio State. Like, he is giving the schools that have the best relationships with him a shot. As I mentioned on Tuesday, he is Devon Ellie's cousin. So like there are some connections here, loose connections, but still they're better than no connections. So it gives him an opportunity to understand what's going on in the program. And I think it gives him maybe a pretty good, well-rounded decision in the end. I don't know if it's going to be Penn State. This is a situation where you get the first visit, and then you've got to weather 4 more visits. Doesn't always work out too well for that first visit, but at the same time, you get them on campus when you can get them on campus, and that's this weekend for Jose Epinesa.
Ryan, anything you want to add to the conversation about this visit and where Penn State? I know you've talked a lot about edges and wanting to add more edges in this class. What do you think about this particular situation?
Good. Penn State's getting him on campus. Won't be easy to land. I mean, I've consistently been hearing that Penn State was trying to line up an official visit with him. I mean, that one goes back to, maybe April. No, definitely April. I want to say early April. The Penn State was really trying to work to lock him in. I think it's good that they got a visit out of it, but I think he actually has. Does he have 5 more, Sean? Was there another one? Maybe an early. Maybe it's only 5 total. But
he's
either way.
It's going to be in order: Missouri, Iowa, Utah, Miami after Penn State. So kind of a shotgun spray there of official visits.
That's
but you look at that, and you see some.
But when you say Utah, he fits that defense. Like, looking at the way he plays in high school, that would be
Penn State. He fits Iowa.
Yep.
I mean, I guess he would fit.
How'd you get your Utah in there, huh?
Well, when you've got a weird one trick, you might as well use it. The last thing I'm curious about this, looking at him just on film, I caught up on his highlight tape this week that we just saw here on the YouTube channel. Edge only? He's a big-looking kid. I mean, he's got a pretty thick frame. So do you see position versatility there, Fitz, or do you think he is an edge? Because, again, we talked about his brother at one point was 280 pounds playing defensive end.
Yeah, to me, he's that he bridges that 5-tech line where he can play, play on the interior if he needs to. Listed at 6'4", 245. We don't have verified on that, but I mean, you look at him and he looks like his brother. He looks like a big square guy that can probably play all over the defensive line. So until we see him, until we get some verified numbers on him, get some length numbers on him, I could see him definitely being an interior guy at the next level. I mean, you look at that's the thing. You look at a lot of these guys and you see 245 and you think, he's too light. And it just depends on how you're going to grow. And, Jimmy Lyons was 245. He's going to stick it in. Some of these guys that Keziah Izzard was 245. He's obviously a 300 pounder now. So it just depends on how they're going to grow. I don't know how he's going to grow, but I could see it. Yeah, I could definitely see it.
Who else is coming to campus this weekend that you guys are tracking, Ryan?
A couple guys. I'll go with Josh Johnson, cornerback out of Ironton, Ohio. Guy we've hit on a good bit. Now, this is an interesting one because we were just talking about corners, could be safeties. I kind of feel like Josh will maybe progress more towards a safety long term. But interesting backstory. I mean, he really hadn't played any high school football until this past season. Really had a pretty solid year for a player who hadn't played since youth. I think Penn State was one of the first schools to really pick up on his potential. They've been on him aggressively for a long time. I will be interested to see if he actually does make it this weekend, because there has been quite a few visits here with Josh where he's planning to come and hasn't been able to make it. So that's one thing I will note. But he does have an official visit set for a few weeks from now. And, Penn State can get him on campus this weekend and parlay that into an official visit in 3 or 4 weeks from now. You have to like their chances there. He has added an Iowa official visit as well. Arkansas and Louisville are the other 3 schools, but Penn State's been the most consistent school on him. I think it really maybe will come down to where he's at, or maybe the safety board / corner board, because I do feel like there's certainly some corners ahead of him on Terry Smith's board. But does that versatility bump him up a little bit and make him an easier take, especially on the timing? Look, if he goes to Iowa and drags this into July, I think it might be tough for him to be in this class. If he actually comes this weekend and then parlays that into an official visit and is ready to commit in June 8th, 10th, somewhere in that ballpark, I think it's easier to take him.
Fitz, your thoughts?
No, I'm very intrigued by him. Obviously, you got some tall guys that are out there in the secondary, and he kind of fits that longer corner role that's probably eventually going to be a safety. Penn State just made an offer in New England this weekend, whose name I don't have written down in front of me, that kind of fits that mold. So they're still looking for guys like that, guys that you think might have corner skills that are probably end up going to be safeties. And I think Josh Johnson does give you some flexibility in there. Curious how fast he is. This is I think a question that they had. Physically he looks there. He's
good
got some good running genes. I think his father was a sprinter. So
and his uncle.
And his uncle. He's got some things to work with there. So I'm curious to see how that comes together, if he gets training or whatever. But we'll see if he pops up on campus this weekend. And if he does, I think that's a good sign, because he's been inconsistent with visits, but not just to Penn State, with everywhere.
By the way, Sean, the offer was Rayshawn Andrews, the
thank you
6'3" kid out of Avon. I got to learn more on him. Go ahead.
Ryan throws this in the chat. He says, Ryan sheared back for another conversation. He says, can you guys touch on quarterback? Seems like some of the Big Ten peers are securing QBs and Penn State is a bit behind. Is he wrong? I don't know which particular quarterback situation he wants to talk about, because Penn State has a quarterback in the class of 2025. But that, I think, segues perfectly into the next conversation. Dia Bell. Where do you guys want to start with Dia Bell?
Well, let's start with this question first. The only top 10 quarterback in the Big Ten right now is St. Clair, right, for Ohio State. I know Nebraska just got Latif or whatever his name is, but he's ranked like 30th by on3 at the quarterback position. I don't think that's like a game. That's not obviously the guy they got last year named.
Yeah, Raiola was. Yeah, and that's a special situation with his family and everything like that. But I don't see much of a difference there. I think going back the last couple of classes, I think you would have Penn State ahead of Nebraska in that situation. I'm not a big Raiola guy, but we're going to see where he, how he ends up. But I don't see just because I think a lot of people are down on Beckham Kritza. I think this is really what we're coming across here. Penn State lost Matt Zollers, so I get that aspect of it, but I don't think there's a gap in there at all.
The only other schools in the Big Ten that have top 20 quarterbacks right now: Oregon with Achilles Smith ranked 12th, and then Carter Smith for Michigan ranked 19th. So it's not like Purdue or some of these schools are splashing money around like maybe some other schools are, and getting guys they shouldn't be getting. I don't see a real uptick in quarterback recruiting right now.
But
we
Penn
have
State,
Latif as an 88 3-star at on3, and I'm not saying we're the be all end all here, but right. It's not a top 100 kid or anything like that.
But the Elite 11 is coming to State College this weekend, and I apologize. I should have clarified this with you guys. I know we were planning on talking about Diabell. Is he going to be a part of the Elite 11, and is this a transition to that conversation, or is this still we're talking about the visitors?
Yes. So Diabell is going to participate in the NFL, the Elite 11 this weekend. He's going to be one of those guys that comes in early for an unofficial visit. Penn State's trying to have like a sort of a reception for underclass quarterbacks, but playing the secret here, Diabell's kind of in a different category. This is probably their top guy in 2026. So, he's going to be able to do what he wants when he's on campus. And this is a big one because you look at what he has in terms of his offers. I think Texas, very prevalent here. Ohio State's in there. LSU just offered not too long ago. So you've got opportunities for him all over the country at big time schools. But Penn State, probably his best relationship, maybe if not his best, one of his best. So this is going to be an interesting recruitment because I do think Penn State's actually in this mix. I know some people have said that they lead. You know me, like that's a long way from home, and this is a premium position. So it's tough to see Penn State without being the first in on him, and they were early on him, but without being the first in on him like they were on Drew. It's going to be a tough win, but it's certainly possible. Like I don't think this is a situation where we sit there and write this one off. He's got an opportunity to come in and play early if you're looking so far down the line at quarterback, and I think he likes that. He likes Danny O'Brien. He likes Andy Goldeneck. He was down there a couple of weeks ago, and Penn State's shooting high in 2026. I wrote on Wednesday about the top targets they've got, and they're certainly going all in on some of those top guys, and they've had them on campus. And like we said, this is not atypical of what Penn State has done before because it's happened, but there is some traction for those guys.
Ryan, you always say follow the visits. Taking a look at his visit page, 3 visits to Penn State, 3 visits to Ohio State. Seems like Penn State is near the top of who he's interested in, and he's coming back to campus into town this upcoming weekend. I guess, what's your view of the situation there with Diabell?
Well, we used to be able to say follow the visits, right, Sean? Not so much in the NIL era anymore.
You can follow other things now, and makes it a little tougher.
Right. Certainly. I mean, this would be his 4th visit to Penn State, I believe, which is important. I'm not sure if every school has all the proper visits logged into, our 1-3 visit center, but that would make Penn State the top school. I'm sure maybe there's a couple of visits we're missing in there, but he's been pretty proactive at getting out to schools. A couple of things that stand out to me. I know his mom's from New Jersey, so there are some ties to the area. And the other thing that's kind of been mentioned to me a couple of times is just that because who his father is, Raja Bell, played in the NBA for so many years, how important will NIL be to a player like Dia when it is maybe to so many others in the class? And don't get me wrong, he's going to have great opportunities. But when I think of a school like Penn State and compare him to some other schools, does that help a school like Penn State because obviously his family has done well for themselves. So it's just something that people batted around maybe as a way that, Penn State can help themselves or be in a better position than maybe someone would expect. But make no mistake, I mean, I do think Penn State's going to be top 3 or so with him. We'll see if they can get over the line.
So to answer Ryan's question in a roundabout way, what's going on with Penn State recruiting? 2025, they have a quarterback and seems like they're hot after some of the top quarterbacks in the country. I know both of you have written about the quarterback situation in 2026 over at BlueWhiteIllustrated.com. Another great reason to go sign up and get that information, get kind of a deeper context of this particular conversation. But from a quarterback perspective with the Elite 11, that is the focus of the camp, even though there are other positional what's the word?
All 22. They bring everybody now, but it's still primarily quarterback.
Yeah, the camp drills and things like that for other positions. So quarterback, how do you view the quarterbacks coming into town this upcoming weekend in 2025, knowing that Penn State had been pursuing 2 quarterbacks? They currently have 1. Seems like things there aren't moving. So does this weekend change anything in your mind, Ryan? Can it change anything?
One thing I would add to the Diabell discussion too is like, if they're in a great position with Diabell, which I think they are, I don't, do you want to scare away adding a second quarterback in 2025? Yeah. Like that's something that's also been kind of mentioned to me. It's like, because Diabell may very well be committed by the time his junior season starts. You keep working that angle. And if you can get a guy like him committed and firmly on board, which he seems like a guy who wouldn't really be bouncing around much, I think that's more of a reason to, hey, keep chipping away at Matt Zollers if you can, but more of a reason to not push the gas pedal to absolutely add a second quarterback. I don't see him adding a second quarterback in 2025, but who knows how it'll play out.
Ryan or Fitz?
Malik Washington and Matt Zollers will be in town this weekend, so that's interesting to me. They're not going to stop by or visit or anything like that, but like we're gonna get a chance to see them. I agree with Ryan. Is that if you can get Bell, you're probably not going to sign a second 2025. The exception there would be they want Zollers bad. Like they still want Zollers bad, and I think that's a situation where you kind of find yourself walking that line. And if you get Zollers, does it cost you a 2026 bird in hand? That whole thing. Like I think you have that. If you're faced with that, you probably take the in-state guy because it's a little bit safer. But Penn State's not in that situation right now. Like that's me speculating on like how 6 months from now we could be talking about something else. But I think that's kind of where you find yourself right now. But Diabell, I think Penn State's right in it. Like you look at the dominoes in 26, and I think they're going to be like 25, and then a lot of top early guys. And I'm not saying the top early guys are going to end up as the top early guys, but a lot of the top early guys were off the board in 2025, and I can see that in 2026. Very important dominoes when you talk about Diabell and Troy Hune from California. Also a Penn State top target. I'm sorry, I'm just kind of I got dry here for a second. But also a top target for Penn State. But also, those are the only two guys that Texas has offered in the class of 2026 at quarterback. So that's very important to look at that. Do we see a race to Texas? And does that somehow spin into benefiting Penn State? We will see what that happens. You can also say the same about Notre Dame. Of course, Ohio State still doesn't have a quarterback. Michigan still doesn't have a quarterback. So lots of dominoes to fall, but Penn State's in that domino school tier, where you try and see that. And I know that it hasn't completely worked out like that. They went out and they created a domino in Grunkmeyer 2 years ago. You found yourself waiting for Martin Van Buren, and then all of a sudden, I think
waiting a long time for Martin Van Buren.
Yeah, that's true. But no, I think it's a situation where you're probably leaning toward the early targets in the 2026, and 6 months from now we could be saying something very different. But it's very interesting to watch the dynamic of every class, because every class is going to be different, and because those evaluations never stop. How
does, I guess, go a little in more detail? I'm curious about this. How does the connection between 25 and 26 work? Because we see some schools able to take a quarterback target every single year. Penn State, it seems like they get a highly ranked quarterback 1 year, and then Adante Moore maybe isn't interested because there's already a quarterback on the roster. In other schools, is it NIL? Is it proof of you can come here and go to the league? What are the things that you have to make those choices where maybe some other schools don't, Ryan?
I think it's very gray, and I don't think that's black and white. Would you agree? I mean, it just depends on the prospect. It depends on the year. It depends on regional. There's so many variables that would impact that. I could, if we went back and looked at the last 5 recruiting classes and how they impact them, I think you could maybe find differences in every single one. So I don't. NIL is massive right now with quarterbacks. I mean, that is a big thing. It is the one position where you can make serious money, or not guaranteed, but projected to make serious money. Yeah, up front. But so that is bigger at the moment. But again, like I don't know. I think it's very gray and hard to kind of answer or specifically pinpoint any one thing.
Gotcha.
And I don't think that Penn State has that reputation from a take NIL out of it from a quarterback perspective. They do not have a reputation as an assembly line for quarterbacks that goes, back multiple coaches. Like this is not something that's new here. Offense, for whatever reason, Penn State is seen as archaic. You're seen as a run the football type of program, and that's hurt Penn State in the past. And I think it still continues to linger a little bit there. The NIL doesn't help. I saw a thing in the chat about taking a stud and then taking an off year. It doesn't really work like that. You got to take the best you can get every year, especially because the guys that go in the portal, Penn State can't afford a starting quarterback in the portal. Like
that's kind of what I was going to ask next. With the recruiting process in the portal, it doesn't seem like if you're involving NIL here, that seems like a real reason to recruit out of high school every single year, because you have to get as many bites at the apple as possible from the recruiting angle, because from the transfer portal angle, there's no more expensive position than quarterback in all of football, no matter what level it would seem like. So I guess are you weighing those things when you're trying to build your quarterback room?
Well, Penn State's a developmental program across the board. But, I think especially at those premium positions is you've got to bring them in, you've got to coach them up, and you got to hit. And they've done really well in the draft, absolutely. But I think there's still some shortcomings, just spotty on the roster. Like this is a thing where you can sort of draw a line graph of which positions are your best and your worst, and Penn State's is still a bit spiky. Some other schools are kind of a more straight line. You'd like to get to that straight line aspect, and sometimes it's we talk about let's talk about defensive tackles. Defensive tackles are going to be, I think, pretty good this year, and it's going to be a little bit higher than it was last year because it's the same guys, all that kind of stuff. Next year it's going to go down, and you're going to have to account for that. You would like to be in a situation where you kind of restock and reload rather than rebuild, but the reality of college football is just not how it really works unless you're at the top. So Penn State being where they are in the tier that they're at right now, there's going to be certain areas where you're kind of down, and fair or not seen as an offensive program, not seen as a program. And that's, they've put up numbers before. They've put up, they've led the nation in scoring in certain times. There might be
threw the ball so much in 2021, but we only remember the last two seasons for some reason.
Correct. So, I mean, whether it's fair or not, it's irrelevant because you got these things working against you, and that's and Penn State's not the only program that has that working against them. So,
yeah. I guess, is there anything else from the Elite 11 you guys want to cover? Anything interesting from quarterback or non-quarterback positional attendee list that you guys are aware of you want to talk about here, or just generally how Penn State benefits from having the Elite 11 in State College, adding an extra visit weekend here in May? How does this benefit them, Ryan?
Well, sorry, go ahead.
We just named them all, right? Look, all these guys coming in the campus this weekend, which normally wouldn't even be the case. So I think it's certainly been good. Last year, that's how Grunk got over it. Grunk was already going to commit, don't get me wrong, but he came back for back-to-back visits and committed the day before the Elite 11. So it's certainly a positive, certainly something that, people organizing it understand how it would benefit the university as well. And hey, keep it going as long as you can. The one negative I will say, it's the same day as the Under Armour camp this year, which is where I'll be at in Baltimore. Which is a bum. I'm really curious to see these lists, by the way, because we haven't gotten these lists yet as far as who's going.
I think there's going to be a lot of duplicates on there, like
I
guys that say they're going to both of them
at both camps.
Yeah. So we'll see which ones show up. But I mean, this is essentially a bonus recruiting weekend for Penn State. Like you get an extra summer recruiting weekend, and that's invaluable when you take a look at some of these guys, especially the younger guys. Like I said, they're trying to host underclassmen quarterbacks. So at this time last year, that would have included Matt Zollers, who that day was Coach A, Bernard Abrams from Philly that works with quarterbacks, came up to me before the camp. He said, "Watch this kid. This kid, he might be special." Okay, great. I've never heard of the kid before. So you watch him, all of a sudden he gets on the radar, and a year later he's the number 3 quarterback or whatever he is in the class. So hey, man, you never know. And that's why I'm excited to watch the 2026s, some 2027s. We'll see. I know that doesn't turn pages or anything like that, but this is a situation where you can bring the premium position guys to you, and they're kind of forced to check out Penn State at the same time. That makes sense.
And I'll be interested to see which one of these players are at both camps, because that dude's fast, and I would sign him pretty quickly. Any final thoughts, guys? Ryan, anything else to get out of here you're looking forward to this weekend, or what you have in the pipeline?
Not a whole lot. Like I said, mentioned earlier in the show, we got that college showcase tonight down here in Harrisburg. Excited to check that out. Excited to go down to Baltimore this weekend for the Under Armour camp. We'll see who shows to which. I'm very curious on what the quarterbacks will look like, because you would think that if you're a quarterback in the region, you're probably going to lean towards Elite 11, right? It's right. Kind of that's the big name camp for that. So I'm very curious to see who the quarterbacks are and who they'll be throwing to and all that come Sunday. But with Memorial Day being a week up this year compared to what it normally is, I feel like that's had to be the reason these two camps were where they are, because a lot of schools take off Memorial Day weekend. Penn State's don't they go on vacation? I think like it's got to be part of it.
Yeah, because you got to set yourself up for the. Not really. You got to set yourself up for the final weekend in May, which starts the official visit. So get yourself that buffer in there. But yeah, I am very, very much looking forward to rolling out of bed and going 5 minutes to check out a camp. That's really great.
Same.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah, the drive to Baltimore with Ryan a couple years ago, that was a good drive, but I much
That was from
prefer
State
just heading
College,
over to
yeah.
State High. Yeah.
I got a Phillies game the night before, so we're going to go down to the Phillies game Saturday night, drive back in the middle of the night, and then drive down to Baltimore.
You always have the most fun schedule. You always throw something in there at the end.
I got a great weekend coming up. Can't wait.
We got a great weekend of coverage as well. Of course, BlueWhiteIllustrated.com is where you go get the information. We'll have stuff on social media. You can follow all of us on social media to see what we put out from those camps. And of course, here on the Blue White Illustrated YouTube channel, I will have my camera with me at Elite 11. Don't really know yet who I'm going to follow, but we usually get some good stuff from what we get from access at camps and things like that. So we'll bring you some of the results, some of the things you can see here on the YouTube channel, of course, at BlueWhiteIllustrated.com. I'm Thomas Ryan Carr for Ryan Snyder and Sean Fitz. Thanks for being here today. We will talk to you later.